It's my pleasure to welcome you back to our next session on opportunities for Saudi global collaboration, moderated by Dr. Hatem Samman. With him, I'm pleased to have Mr. Eric Ryan, President and CEO of Minno, and Mr. Chris Ryan, Vice President of Minno.
Thank you, Jawahar, and thank you to Sajia and Dr. Hatem for organizing this conference and for giving us the opportunity to introduce Minno's products and our business model. I am Eric Ryan, President of Minno, and I'll be sharing the presentation with the guy who looks a lot like me. In fact, he's an imposter. This is my brother and business partner, Chris Ryan, who serves as our Vice President of Sales. Minno creates high-performance mobile devices, primarily tablets and phones, selling them in volume to institutions rather than to retail consumers. Minno has a unique business model, which we'll detail later, that leverages both the global supply chain for mobile devices to significantly lower the cost for users who are envisioning broad adoption. We also use regional partnerships for assembly, product localization, and after-sales support. This is a view of Minno's current global footprint. I apologize that some of the formatting on these slides is off. The normal PowerPoint resolution and the slides for the presentation are a little different, so it reformatted everything once we started. If you have difficulty seeing anything, let me know. We have corporate offices in California and in Spokane, Washington. We have distribution partners in Mexico, in South America, and in Vietnam. We do software development in Armenia and Jordan, and we have production facilities in Armenia and China. Minno's device product line includes tablet computers of various screen sizes and specifications. Some are 3G, some are wireless only. We have various memory configurations, and we also manufacture smartphones. Both the smartphones and tablets either operate on Android by Google or Windows by Microsoft as operating systems. We also have some specialty products designed for specific channels, but I won't go into detail about those. We sell our products under our own brand name, Minno, but some of our distribution partners choose to sell our tablets as a localized brand. In Armenia, for instance, our tablets are sold as either ARMTab or ARMphone. Some companies also have asked us to white label products with their own brand identity, and we're more than happy to do that for companies that would like us to. We ran out of a budget for models, so I had to do this myself. Mobile devices are far more powerful than computers because they're loaded with sensors. Light sensors, accelerometers, gyroscopes, cameras, GPS, near-field technology. All of these sensors give useful feedback to applications about your position and condition in the world and allow applications to provide us with an augmented understanding of our environment. Each new sensor that gets added to a mobile device creates a whole new business opportunity for how that sensor and device might be used. Excuse me. I have to get used to using this computer. It's different than mine. Also, mobile devices are both simultaneously dematerializing and demonetizing large sectors of the global economy. In the 1970s, for instance, the hallmark of a middle-class American lifestyle might look something like this. It would include a TV set, a typewriter, a phone, a movie camera, a globe, an alarm clock, probably an encyclopedia, if you remember what those look like, a record or tape player, and a library full of books. Today, anyone with a smartphone has all of this in their pocket. For better or worse, an 8-year-old with a cell phone today has as much information at their fingertips as most global leaders had at their disposal 8 years ago. Dematerialization leads to demonetization. So once products are dematerialized into applications, the cost of duplication and distribution of those products becomes essentially zero. So dematerialized businesses are infinitely scalable and empower us with value and efficiency. Suddenly, a business model that started as a small scale can instantly become a global business almost overnight. And the ability to instantaneously communicate with the whole community of users, the crowd, is changing almost every traditional business model. When I arrived at Cake, I saw on the nightly news that citizen number 7 billion was born 2 days ago in India. Today, less than 3.5 billion people are connected to the internet. Over the next 6 years, 3 billion new users will access the internet for the first time using mobile technology primarily. Just imagine that for a minute. Imagine the scale, I did it again, sorry. Imagine the scale of opportunity that 3 billion plus new consumers will bring to the worldwide economy. Even conducting relatively small transactions, technologies like blockchain technology, such as Bitcoin, allow for frictionless transactions of even very small amounts, eliminating bank fees and currency exchange loss. More importantly, imagine the creative and the innovative power of 3 billion new minds participating in the online community from diverse cultural backgrounds, such as Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. Since the introduction of mobile devices in 2007, mobile media usage has been transformed. This slide shows time spent on digital media per day, but it also reflects how people are accessing the internet. The gray bars are desktop computers and how they access the internet. The red are mobile device access. In 2015, more people access the internet from mobile devices than from desktop computers. And typically they stay on the web longer than those users who are on a desktop. This is largely because of the time spent on rapidly increasing number of applications for mobile devices. The Android Play Store, which is now the largest, now has over 1.3 million mobile applications. Global media traffic grew 69% in 2014. And in case you're wondering, more than half of all of that was due to video transfer. In 2014, 500 million new mobile devices connected to the World Wide Web. Smartphones accounted for 88% of that growth. In 2014, the number of tablets increased 160% to 74 million. Each tablet, by the way, generates about 2.5 times more traffic online than the average smartphone does. And that's only the beginning. Everyone and everything will eventually be connected. Cisco Systems estimates that the Internet of Everything will connect 50 billion devices to the Internet by 2020, up from 11 billion in 2014. This will enable new products, new business systems, and new business models to largely be managed through mobile devices, which are beginning to be deployed in large scale for education, government use, and enterprise. This slide, I think, is better for people to just look at than for me to explain. Firstly, because the data comes from Cisco. Second of all, because it talks about enormous hypothetical business benefits from the Internet of Everything that equal $14.4 trillion. And you can see how they essentially estimate and break those down. What I can tell you is that we're living in a time of incredible technical abundance. The Internet of Everything refers to the fact that processing power, storage capacity, and bandwidth are all becoming almost infinitely scalable and at negligible cost. Practically any device, sensor, or appliance can be connected to the Internet with its own IP address. And the data derived from those sensors and devices is going to allow us to approach near perfect knowledge about the world that we're living in. The rapid growth of the cloud, the power of the crowd, and mobile computing are all changing business models. Cognitive computing is now available to almost anyone. IBM's Watson computer now has APIs that allow even startups to analyze big data and turn that data into useful information. The ability to combine technologies, both hardware and software, in more powerful ways make it possible to realize more value from connectedness. Emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, 3D printing, cognitive computing, and genomics are all simultaneously and rapidly changing the entire business landscape. This just shows you a key figure about mobile data traffic, and that is that because of all this device traffic and sensor traffic that's going to be on the internet, global media data traffic is expected to increase by 10 times between 2014 and 2019. And the Middle East and Africa will have the highest data traffic growth of any region in the world. That'll be 72% of as an annual growth rate. Again, in addition to traffic, the Middle East and Africa will also have the strongest growth in device penetration and connectivity of any worldwide region. If you remember the original slide where Minno's global footprint is, it's not a coincidence that our markets are Central and Eastern Europe, Latin America, Asia Pacific, and the Middle East, which are all the fastest growing areas for internet penetration. Much of mobile adoption to date has been consumer use. And so you've seen a tremendous amount of growth immediately in the smartphone and 4G smartphone market. This slide, I think, is very interesting because it shows the growth in usage of tablet computers, both wireless and 4G computers. Much of the mobile adoption in the tablet space reflects two features. One is the fact that tablet users stay online longer than consumers on smartphones do. I mentioned earlier it's about 2.5 times as long. And the other is that as mobile technology is more and more adopted in business, education, and government institutions, those institutions are oftentimes choosing tablets over phones and smaller screen devices. So we expect this to continue to grow rapidly. Minno's focus markets are in education and healthcare. These numbers really come primarily from the US market. And so when you look at international regions, the penetration is probably significantly lower in developing countries. But what I think is interesting about it is how penetrated the consumer market is. But if you look in specific market verticals, such as education and healthcare, there's very little penetration to date. And a lot of that has to do with the amount of content and the way these enterprises are choosing to use tablets. They're just now beginning to figure out how best to use devices and mobile technology in their business models. And so we expect to see a very rapid growth in those areas. And now I'm going to introduce Chris, who's going to carry on and talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia's market specifically.
Good morning. So Eric alluded to the fact that the growth of the tablet market and particularly certain subsectors, including healthcare and education, are quite extreme. So I thought I would delve a bit into both of these subsectors as they affect the Saudi market specifically, and then talk more about the business concept that we have at Minno and how that might be interesting from a local partnership perspective. I learned just last night from a reputable source that 70% of the people of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are under the age of 30 years old. That's an incredibly young demographic. This supports the graphic here, indicating that more than 1/3 of the population are students. In turn, half of these attend public institutions. You can see from the KSA national budget figures for 2015 that 1/4 of the budget, some $58 billion, was devoted to education. Combined with previous commitments, the total allocated funding for education is more than $132 billion US. We at Minno can only hope that some of this will be dedicated to technology in education. How can tablets impact the classroom? There are now many platforms and apps devoted to teaching. Microsoft and Google, who create our operating systems, have very robust education platforms. But there's some commonality to each of these. The three basic functions of educational platforms include classroom and device management, allowing carefully managed access to the internet, something that's of concern to every parent, scheduling assignments, and work review. Learning assessment is the second major category. These are essentially for surveying understanding during lessons, one-on-one help and questions between instructor and student, and testing that's administered and instantly scored on a mobile device. Finally, much of the actual content for learning is readily available. Oh, sorry. We're both slow learners. Much of the new content is available on electronic sources such as ebooks, recorded lectures, published articles, graphic demonstrations that bring learning to life. Next, we'll have a quick review of the healthcare sector in the KSA. As you can see, healthcare is becoming a very high priority for the kingdom as well. Second only to education, $58 billion was allocated to healthcare and medical infrastructure in 2015. How can tablets be put to use here? There are many facets that can be made more efficient while mobile computing, but just a few of these for healthcare include record management, access and histories that are available and coordinated with major independent software platforms, including Epic, Cerna, Scripps, GE, and so forth. Telehealth, which includes remote monitoring and diagnosis for patients. Great applications for rural areas to get quality care. Communication tools help healthcare professionals collaborate through digital communities to share ideas more effectively. Better patient, doctor, nurse coordination through direct communication applications. In light of global and regional trends, how does Minno fit into this picture? In short, our broad goal is to deliver up-to-date mobile tablets and other devices to emerging mobile markets. Importantly, these must be reliable devices and provided in high volumes at best possible value. Here's several ways that we add that value. We have long-term trusted relationships with global vendors who produce a specific bill of materials or finished product for our large institutional customers. Everything we do is geared around doing this efficiently. We are not in the retail market, so we have little need to build our own brand. In fact, we actually prefer to create affinity and loyalty in the local market, with recognition that our devices are assembled in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Finally, we carefully test and quality assure our devices from start to finish along the entire global supply chain. Minno further adds value for our partners with these advantages. Our tablets are tested and Google certified in order to host the standard Google mobile suite of applications. If you prefer Windows and other Microsoft software, we're also a Windows Master License named account manufacturer. We perform all required and many additional certifications to meet needs of the market. I'll elaborate on some of the other features here a little bit later. Key to our business model is a constant search for partners in local markets, and with strategic partners as well. A number of you have met our colleague, Faris Zawaida, sits over there. And Faris is here in the Middle East doing just that, looking to form partnerships and develop our business here. So I invite you to speak with him anytime during the conference. These relationships, as well as local investment ventures for final assembly facilities, are critical to our success. There's some important benefits to our customers and the local economy as we set up a facility. Along with the assembly team, high-value employees, including managers, engineers, sales and service staffing, provide local jobs. In some locations, import costs can be significantly reduced due to reduced import tariffs on unfinished goods. Additionally, the tablets can be locally or regionally branded and supported after sale locally. Sorry, slow slide to load there. There we go. With our experience in setting up local facilities, some resources that Minno can offer to new partners include help with the plant layout and assembly process, a turnkey equipment list and specifications, software and content localization with the help of our strategic partners, and optimization of device firmware to support local platforms. These are some examples of current strategic partners that Minno employs or cooperates with. These often allow us to access unique channels, or more often, to create valuable content and use platforms for specific markets. I want to briefly illustrate just one of these partners, who happens to be represented in the room here. James Watt, who's at the center of the room, is here to represent a company called Teachers Media International, or TMI. They are a global provider of online professional development services for the education sector. Specifically, their methods ensure that teachers around the world are trained, inspired, and supported to be the very best. TMI supports teachers and school administrators with professional development training and 24/7 connectivity and support. TMI has been working for some time on projects in the Middle East and has done a lot of work to localize and set up a curriculum for training teachers here. Importantly, they are just completing a complete mobilization of their platform, making tablets an ideal delivery method. This is an example of a teacher homepage showing email, instant messaging capability, and training progress toward technology and math training. This is an example of one of TMI's teacher engagement perspectives. It's a graph monitoring progress with classroom experience. Course progress components in this graph include homework, curriculum, material presentation, video, and exams. Part of the TMI process includes using teaching ambassadors to help teachers learn. These may come from the local community or international locations. Levels of collaboration are fully controlled by the implementers. Minno may allow TMI complete mobilization of the teaching platform. Our tablets provide consistent performance, low-cost hardware suited to any environment. So that's the Minno story, if you will. And I'd like to finish, if I can make the link work here, with a short, actually it's a little longer video than we originally anticipated, about 4 minutes. But hopefully the catchy tune will keep you engaged for a while. But this particular plant facility is in Yerevan, Armenia, which is actually our first installation that started operation about 1 year ago. And this has been an important base for us to establish our business model, if you will. The plant in Armenia now assembles finished product for sale in Armenia itself. We have a 4-year contract with the Ministry of Education, as well as a few government contracts in play and some local sales as well to telco companies locally. In addition, that facility is now beginning to sell into the broader CIS region, including countries such as Georgia, Turkmenistan, Belarus, Romania, and so forth. hope you got some indication of how the facility looks and the activities that go on there. Had we waited toward the end of the clip there, you'd also see an entire packaging facility, testing of all the devices and so forth. So it's quite a large endeavor, but we would certainly look forward to bringing that experience to a location in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia would be an excellent choice. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm pleased now to invite Mr. Ghassan Hasbani, Chief Executive Officer of Graycoats.
Your Excellencies, dear participants in the 2015 annual meeting of the Global Federation of Competitiveness Councils and the Global Innovation Summit, I'm honored to have the opportunity to address this forum, and I thank SAGIA and the GFCC for the invitation. I came to Saudi Arabia in 1999, and time passed so quickly. I proudly participated and witnessed the transformation that picked up momentum year after year. And it's very interesting today to look back at what has been achieved over that time in terms of creating a positive investment and business environment in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the changes that have actually happened. What I have seen not only prepared the kingdom for securing a competitive position on the global stage, but to also build sustainable advantage in the region and globally. In order to gain such a position, a country must not be only competitive today, but needs to also be ready for the future. So, the checklist for future readiness is quite long, but to select a few items that address the global challenges, risks, and opportunities, we can single out the following ones. One, what's happening today in terms of hyperconnectivity at a global level. Saudi Arabia has one of the highest mobile penetrations in the world, nearing 200% of the population. And it was among the first markets in the region, if not the first, to open the telecom sector for competition and for foreign direct investment. The second major trend is the urbanization and the rise of cities as key drivers of international competitiveness. Not only we have seen the rise of economic cities, such as the one we are in today, but the ambitious development of existing ones as well, along the core pillars of city competitiveness, namely regulations and the regulatory framework, especially to simplify doing business. Secondly, the hard connectivity, i.e. the infrastructure, transportation, telecommunications, and other infrastructures necessary to build a competitive city. And last but not least, the soft connectivity, the use of technology and applications, as well as building a good living environment. The third global trend is the emerging new industrial revolution based on technology innovation. Saudi Arabia has been quietly but significantly advancing its capabilities through research, development, and commercialization in many areas, such as materials, renewable energy, genomics, aerospace, and information and communications technology. Not many global investors actually know that, but it has actually been happening and happening quite significantly in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, with great institutions such as KAUST and KAXT, significant progress has been happening in these areas of research and development and innovation. For the global community, this may not be obvious. The tendency to stereotype may mask the true collaboration potential that could exist in Saudi Arabia. There are certain paradoxes that need to be understood by investors when making investments in Saudi Arabia to understand how to navigate the ecosystem and how to create successful partnerships. The first one is that many believe that this is an oil-centered economy, and it stops at that. But diversifying is a significant progress that has been happening in Saudi Arabia at a phenomenal pace. The other one is, it's a traditional culture. Traditional, yes, but progressive, embracing innovation while preserving the culture and heritage of society. And that must be respected and understood in order to create a successful partnership. Focused, yet flexible. Clear vision and plans are in place. However, there is a great willingness to modify when necessary and when partnerships and major programs require so. Risk-averse, yet bold, as exemplified with the mega cities projects, among other programs, where risks are calculated but faced with no fear in terms of execution. All this combined with the largest market in the region makes Saudi Arabia the perfect partner in the global value chain and a very open space for potential investments, inward and outward, with global collaboration to create a better region and a better world. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to our discussion today.
Thank you, Ghassan. Thank you, Eric and Chris. Great presentation, a great speech. Eric, let me start with you, if you don't mind. Why do you think Saudi Arabia is a good place to do business in the technology sector?
Well, it's an excellent place for our business model in particular. Saudi Arabia has a whole lot of advantages for the markets that we want to access. Quite easy access to the CIS region. Africa is also a market that is of great interest to us to develop. Of course, the Middle East, and the infrastructure here in terms of shipping and logistics is excellent. The fact that it's a stable currency and a stable government and has all the things that could concern an investor investing abroad under control are all very attractive to us. But also, I think the one deficit that Saudi Arabia might have would be the supply chain. And for us, because we're essentially doing assembly and high-value jobs here, we're able to import, because Saudi Arabia has trade agreements with Taiwan and China, we're able to import some of the inputs that we need and do the value add here. So it's really a perfect combination of things.
Great. Thank you. Ghassan, why should Saudi Arabia really care about attracting investments in the technology and telecom sector?
Investments in the technology sector. Well, let's just look back a little bit at how Saudi Arabia evolved in the area of technology. It was among the first sectors to be open for foreign direct investment. And the liberalization of the telecommunications market was the starting point to enable technology development in Saudi Arabia. As I mentioned earlier, the penetration rates in mobile communications is extremely high here. And the adoption rate, utilization of technology, if you look at that from a population perspective, is extremely high. And the education system is now geared more and more towards technology development, in addition to having centers of excellence in research and development in terms of technology, the universities as well as public institutions. Now, all said, it's also important to recognize that the scale of the market and its position within the GCC allow local development as well, local production and local assembly. And there's been a lot of work also on local innovation and entrepreneurship. So if you're looking across the region to see where you can actually find capabilities, where you can find a large enough local market to sustain a significant investment and development in manufacturing or software development, etc. And where can you find an accessible market to the region with favorable terms in terms of exports and imports across the GCC, you find that Saudi Arabia is a good place to incubate technology developments in the region. It gives those developments and investments a significant chance of success compared to many other parts of the region.
And final question to Chris. How can Saudi Arabia benefit from technology companies like Minno that mentioned? Can you expand on that a little bit?
I would echo many of the thoughts that these two have expressed. I think that hopefully we demonstrated and see tremendous demand for mobile technology, particularly tablets in institutions here in Saudi Arabia. It's clear that the government is making investments and has an interest in incorporating better education and in particular technology into that process. And so I think that is clear. In addition to that, I think that Saudi Arabia has much to gain by beginning in a small way with technology assembly, and that in turn can lead to even higher level jobs in terms of software development, high level sales and service, and also supply to the broader region.
Great. Okay, we have time for one or two questions from the audience. No?
You put them all to sleep.
Okay, I guess we can break for the next session. All right, thank you.